Good morning students. In today's class we are going to see about that is the first chapter in the history, that is tracing changes through 1,000 of years. In it you will learn about the changes that taken place between the 8th century and the 18th century and how changes occurred at the economical, political, social and cultural front during this period. Let's see by one. How maps have been changed. It was a Greek civilization that one helped to develop enormously the understanding of cartography. Here, cartography, which means it studies about the science of drawing maps and an important science for the society in general. They performed deep study of the size and shape of the earth and its habitable area, climatic zone and the country's position. Next, it will say about it contributed greatly to the history of the geographical knowledge with this geography and accompanying world map. Unfortunately, we only have an indirect reference to this work through an authors like Ela and whose work is far better known in our times. During Rome times, cartographer focused on particular use, for example, military and administrative needs. This need to control the empire in financial, economic, political and military aspect made evident the needs to have map of administrative boundaries, physical features on road networks. Roman maps were more or less restricted to the area comprised by what they called as Mare Nostrum, since this was the core of Rome Empire and around which all the administrative region were distributed. Next, we will see about what changes have occurred in the vocabulary. The Persian language, there is a considerable difference between the medieval and the modern Persians. The two variants are not only different in terms of grammar and vocabulary, but the meaning of certain words have also changed. For instance, the term Hindustan, which means I spell the word Hindustan, Hindustan. I repeat, Hindustan now refers to India, the modern nation state, but in the 13th century the Persians Chronicle Minanji Suraj used the term in the political science to refer the territories under the Delhi Sultan, the area of Punjab and Haryana, and the lands between the Ganga and Yamuna as the extent of the Delhi Sultan changed. What was considered to be the Hindustan also changed. But the early 16th century, the same term acquired a different meaning, as can be seen from Babur use of Hindustan to mean the geography, the fauna and the culture of the people of the Indian subcontinent. The 14th century poet Amir Khusro used the word Hind to imply a similar idea as Babur Hindustan. The term Hindustan bore the meaning of geographical and cultural entity in the past. The term Hindustan, which means geographical and cultural entity in the past, but did not carry the political and national meaning of the present day. Thus, when historians use certain words, they need to be sensitive about the context in which the information are written in the past. The word foreigner, for example, it has been used in the medieval period to mean an outsider. This includes a person from another village or someone who did not belong to that society or culture. In this context, a person living in the forest is a foreigner for a person living in the city. but the two-person living in the same village were not considered as foreigners, even if they belonged to the different religion or caste. Today, we use the word foreigner to refer a person from another country. Next, we will see about the sources how historians used to study the past in a video.
How do historians know about the past? For example, who invented the first modern-day steam locomotive? Well, we know that was Robert Stephenson and his Stephenson's rocket locomotive, built in 1829. How do we know this? We have the letters Robert wrote to his friend Henry Booth, where he describes the initial testing of the rocket locomotive. Then, there are written accounts of the Rainhill trials, the grand competition that the rocket was designed and built for. We have printed handbills of the contest, which show images of the locomotives involved, including the rocket, and newspapers with first-hand reports on the day's events. Historians can then take all these and consider them alongside other relevant information they have, such as books by other authors, specialist articles, and even looking at the artefacts themselves. In this case, the original Stephenson's rocket has been preserved and is on display at the London Science Museum. Historians can also share and discuss information they found with other historians, who in turn can go on and share what they've learnt with others.
Next, we will see about how the new social and political group form.
New social and political groups. At different moments, new technologies made their appearance. The Persian wheel in irrigation, the spinning wheel in weaving, firearms in combat. All these innovations, new technologies and crops came along with people who brought other ideas with them as well. As a result, this was a period of economic, political, social and cultural changes. This was also a period of great mobility. Groups of people traveled long distances in search of opportunity. The subcontinent held immense wealth and the possibilities for people to carve a fortune. One group of people who became important in this period were the Rajputs, a name derived from Rajputra, the son of a ruler. Throughout this period, agriculture was gaining importance. Forests were cleared and brought under cultivation. As forests were cleared, forest dwellers had to migrate, others starting tilling the land and became peasants. These new peasants groups became part of large complex societies. A great social divide was created among the peasants. Ranks varied according to the power, influence and resources controlled by members of the jati or caste. The status of the same jati could vary from area to area. Jatis framed their own rules of conduct for their members.
Next, we will see about what were the development or changes did the formation of new region and empires bring about. The medieval period saw the rise and fall of many great empires. By 700 CE, the Indian subcontinent was divided into many separate regions, each having its own distinct geographical area, language, and culture. In fact, according to the 14th century poet Amir, different languages were spoken in different regions in India. In 1318, he mentioned that there was a different language in every region of this land. Sindhi, Lahore, Kashmir in southern Karnataka, and Telangani in Andhra Pradesh, Gujarati in Gujarat, and Mabari in Tamil Nadu, Awadhi in eastern Uttar Pradesh, and Inwadi in the area around Delhi. After the decline of the Mughal Empire in the 18th century, regional state re-emerged. However, the long imperial rule had left a lost influence on this region. This is an evident from the development of many distinct and shared traditions. For example, the governance system, management of the economy, and languages and culture in the new state were similar to those that had earlier ruled over them. At the same time, these regions did not lose their own identity. Next, we will see about development in religious tradition.
Religious movements. The medieval period in India saw the developments of new religious ideas. The period of our study saw various religious developments and the emergence of religious teachers who laid great stress on devotion to God. The professions were caste-based and decided at birth. The lower castes were denied privileges and were not allowed to enter temples. Some people tried to escape this social discrimination by converting in to Buddhism and Jainism as they preached social equality. During the medieval age, some religious thinkers revived the idea of bhakti, devotion, as mentioned in ancient texts like Purans and the Bhagavad Gita. Bhakti saints preached about devotion to a personal God and preached in local languages. Therefore, they had a large following among the common people. The Bhakti movement in South India. The Bhakti movement began in South India in the 7th century. It was begun by the Alvar saints who were Vaishnavas, devotees of Lord Vishnu, and Nayanar saints who were Shaivas, devotees of Lord Shiva. There were 63 Nayanars who belonged to different caste backgrounds and 12 Alvars who came from equally divergent backgrounds. Most of them belonged to the so-called lower castes. They were sharply critical of Buddhists and Jains and preached about ardent love of Shiva and Vishnu. The Nayanars and Alvars went from place to place composing exquisite poems in praise of the deities and set them to music. These saints promoted caste equality, which helped to reduce social evil. The Nayanar and Alvar saints composed hymns and hagiographies, biographical hymns in praise of Alvar and Nayanar saints. Devzam and Divya Prabandhan are the collections of hymns of Nayanar and Alvar saints respectively. Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya was born in the 8th century in a village of South India. He preached Advaita philosophy, which means understanding and uniting with the universal soul through the attainment of knowledge. He helped in the revival of Hinduism. He worshipped Shiva and inspired the whole country by his books, arguments, and commentaries. He established centers of learning called mathas at Badrinath, Puri, Dwarka, and Sringeri. His mathas are located in all the 4 corners of India. These mathas grew as important pilgrimage centers. Ramanuja. Ramanuja was the follower of Lord Vishnu and taught his disciples that personal devotion to the Lord was the only means of salvation, that is, union with God. He preached about the Vishisht Advaita philosophy, which holds that soul retains its identity even after uniting with Brahma. He preached about social equality and condemned the caste-based restrictions. He mixed freely with the common people and made bhakti a religion of the masses. His disciple Ramananda took his message to the North India. Ramananda. The saint Ramananda of Varanasi spread the message of devotion to Lord Ram. He accepted followers from all castes and religions. Among his close disciples were Ravidas and Kabir. Chaitanya. He was a great religious teacher and a devotee of Lord Krishna. He was born in a learned family in Bengal. At the age of 24, he left his house and travelled all over Deccan, Odisha, Bihar, and Bengal. He sang devotional songs and danced in the praise of God. People of all castes and religions gathered around him. Chaitanya composed hymns praising Lord Krishna and popularized musical gatherings called kirtans. Mirabai. She was a Rajput princess and a devotee of Lord Krishna. It is said that since her childhood, she used to keep an idol of Lord Krishna with her. She considered herself married to the Lord. Although she was married to a royal family in Mewar, she moved to Vrindavan after she became a widow and devoted rest of her life singing bhajan and kirtans. Namadev. He popularized the bhakti culture in Maharashtra. He preached about oneness of God for all the religions. He popularized Vithala worship. He was a family man and did not give up his worldly life. He rejected rituals and composed devotional poems called abhangs in Marathi language. Other Marathi saints like Tukaram, Ramdas, and Eknath were instrumental in spreading this movement among the common people. Kabir, a case study. Kabir was brought up in a family of Muslim julahas or weavers settled in or near the city of Banaras. We have 10 reliable information about his life. We get to know of his ideas from a vast collection of verses called Sakhis and Pads, said to have been composed by him and sung by wandering singers. Kabir was a disciple of the Bhakti saint Ramananda of Banaras. He was influenced by Hindu and Sufi saints as well as Mahayana Buddhism. His followers were called Kabir Panthi. His philosophies and ideas of loving God has been expressed metamorphically through his Doha teachings. The most salient feature of his teaching was the denunciation of polytheism, idolatry, and casteism. He was a true seeker of God and did his best to break barriers between Hindus and Muslims. He believed that God is one and formless, Nirgun, even though different religious groups gave him different names and forms. Kabir rejected meaningless rituals and conveyed simple messages through different types of poems. Kabir's verses were composed in Bhojpuri language mixed with a newly evolved language called Urdu. It is meaningless to classify Kabir's teachings into Sufi or Bhakti. His dohas have proclaimed both religions as same, the end being the attainment of God. The unity that Kabir spoke about was never understood by his followers, who after his death fought over his dead body. The Hindus wished to cremate his dead body, whereas Muslims wanted to bury it. However, all fighting ended once the shroud covering his body was removed. His followers saw that there were flowers in the coffin. His greatest work is Bijak, the seedlings. This collection of Kabir's poems demonstrates his own universal spirit of oneness. His dohas were included in the text called Adi Granth, a text sacred to the Sikhs. The Kabir Granthawali also contains collections of Kabir's verses. Guru Nanak, a case study. He is regarded as the founder of Sikhism. He was born at Nankana Sahib, a town located near the city of Lahore in present-day Pakistan. He visited many holy places and finally settled in Kartarpur and left this world in 1539. Guru Nanak is regarded by Sikhs as their first guru. In the late 15th century, his teachings became very popular among the people of Punjab. These teachings formed the basis of Sikhism. The teachings of Guru Nanak and some of his successors are collected in Guru Granth Sahib, which is the holy book of Sikhs. Teachings. Guru Nanak never believed in leading an ascetic life in search of God. He propagated that man should lead a simple, virtuous life. One should never oppress the poor and the needy to fill one's own coffers. He rejected caste discrimination, idol worship, and meaningless rituals. He stressed on the purity of character and conduct, and the need of a guru for guidance. He also allowed women to join the order. He preached that God is without form, and his will is expressed through the guru's words. His teachings were spread through the group singings of hymns called kirtan. The devotees gathered in buildings called dharamshalas. The dharamshala usually had a community kitchen called langar, where people from all sections of the society could eat together. Dharamshalas later developed into gurudwaras. Sikh Gurus. Guru Nanak was succeeded by 9 Gurus. Guru Nanak selected his disciple Lehna to succeed him as the Guru who became known as Guru Angad Dev. The other 8 Gurus were Guru Amar Das, Guru Ram Das, Guru Arjan Dev, Guru Har Gobind, Guru Har Rai, Guru Har Kishan, Guru Tegh Bahadur, and Guru Gobind Singh. Guru Ram Das, the 4th Guru, was greatly respected by the Emperor Akbar, who granted him a land on which the famous shrine Harmandir Sahib was later built. Guru Ram Das's son, Arjun, compiled the Adi Granth, containing verses by the first 5 Gurus and some other religious teachers like Kabir. With some later additions, this book came to be known as the Guru Granth Sahib. Guru Arjan was executed by Jahangir, which made the Sikhs hostile towards the Mughals. Later, during Aurangzeb's rule, the 9th Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur, was executed for defending his faith. Guru Tegh Bahadur's son, Gobind, introduced the custom of Pahul, baptism by sweetened water stirred with a dagger. Those who were baptized became members of a disciplined brotherhood known as Khalsa. They were ordered to help the needy and helpless and never to show their back to the enemy. Every member of the Khalsa had to have 5 distinctive things on his person. These were Kesh, Kirpan, Kangha, Kada and Kacha. They are popularly known as 5 Ks. After Guru Gobind Singh, the holy book Guru Granth Sahib came to be regarded as Guru, and its message was then spread by the Khalsa.
Next, these are the assignment. Please learn how did the British divide the history of India. Compare the meaning of the term foreigner in the past and present, and what are the religious development occurred during the medieval period. Thank you for your patient listening.